Guys, we're going to try to not bore you to death today. Frank and I both have kind of big personalities, so we'll get you started, get you informed on what this app is about. But Frank, I'm going to let you take it away. Guys, you're going to want to pay attention, make sure you're taking notes, because Frank is going to go over some best practices in order to use this app and in order to help you make some business with sellers. So Frank, go right ahead.
Cool. Thanks, Anna. I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Like I said, I think the initial launch of the app, or just the initial idea behind the app, may be muddied. So the best way that I can describe this app, or the best way to think about it, is that it's a targeted outreach program. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But I think a lot of times it's not a magic wand, right? Like, it's not going to magic up 8 listings. There's this statistic out there that a Remax agent gains 8 listings in the first 3 months using the app. I think everyone missed the word using the app, right? Like, they thought if I download the app, it's going to just like magic something and I'll be rich. Like, there's no get rich quick scheme in sales. And if there is, you should probably run from it, right? So this is what I mean by targeted outreach, right? This is somebody in your office. They uploaded 3,560 contacts. If I got on here today and was like, let's call 3,560 people, you could slap me, right? Like, nobody's got time for that. It doesn't make sense. It's not helpful. So let's make it helpful. That's what the app starts to do. It removes some junk contacts, removes some duplicates. It removes 623 realtors, right? I bet you it didn't get all of them. I can almost guarantee it, right? So like, we're not going to freak out because nothing's perfect, right? We're just going to delete and move on. It's kind of the best way to look at it. The important thing that it really did is it pulled in addresses. It pulled in 772 addresses. Because if you're like me, right, I've got a first name, maybe a last name, a telephone number, and definitely not an address in my phone, right? So what is it going to do? It needs to pull in that address, connect it to the name, and then from there, it runs its AI. And it runs an algorithm that uses about 700 public data points. It can be things like equity in the home, size of the house, how long they've been there. It can be life events, marriage, divorce, kids, if they adopted a dog during COVID like me. It could be a school zone got redistricted, so that means they might be moving because they don't like the new school zone. Whatever it is, all of those data points get meshed together. That's what makes it powerful, to give you these star ratings. And very, very technically, the algorithm actually ranks the entire US population and kicks out these star ratings. So a 3-star contact is 90% more likely to list than your average US homeowner. A 2-star contact's around 85%, and a 1-star is around 75%. Let's be like upfront here. I wouldn't call them leads because they're people in your phone. But if I gave you 500 leads, would all of them be perfect? Like, hell no, right? Like, that's just not how it works. I wish if I give you 500 perfect leads, like, amazing, but that's just not how it's going to work. So same thing here. Nothing's perfect. Out of this 422, not all of them are going to make sense. It could be a mom or dad or something like that you would never reach out to, friends and family. I had somebody come up to me and say, hey, there's a 3-star contact in here. It's my deceased grandfather. And I said, oh my God, I'm really sorry to hear that. Can you tell me a little bit more? And he was like, yeah, he's been living with me for the past 2 years. And I go, okay, well, your internet and all the real estate work that you do, his name associated with that, you trick the algorithm, right? But in his mind, because one didn't make sense, he had decided that the rest didn't make sense. And again, like I said, I come from door knocking. So if you got a no on the first door, you weren't like done for the day, right? Like, that's just not how it works. Like, you had to knock on another 120 doors before you're allowed back in the car to go home. So that's kind of the mentality here. It's like, don't say that it's not working until you've done the 422 stars. Then we can talk about it, right? I actually had another agent. She had tried it 2 years ago, was skeptical then. we got her back on it. She tried it again. She was like, it's all the same people. And I'm like, you have 130 stars. Like, how do you remember it's the same 130 people from 2 years ago? Like, I was like, if you reach out to 130 people, all those stars, I'll buy you lunch and dinner if nothing happens. Like, I wasn't like, I'll buy you lunch or dinner. I was like, I'll buy you lunch and dinner. Like, and she still wasn't willing to do the work. And that's what's really given me the insight to, this is a targeted outreach program, but it still requires the agent to drive it. It still requires them to do the outreach. So I'm going to hop on the app. I'm very happy to make this interactive. So, yep, Anna, come on, ask some questions. Anybody else, please feel free to chime in.
I'm interested in what you said regarding kind of how they compare this information to the rest. You said like a global number, so that I think we're looking here. Yeah, how is this, I guess, how do they grab these stats basically?
Sure. So this is like, just like, this data is actually on your app. It's just cleaner way to look at it that I have on a backend system, right? So like, they uploaded a phone with 2038 contacts, and you can add an email account. So if you have like an old email account or a different email account, you can add that. And that pulled in, for them, it pulled in 1,697 contacts, right? So total, they uploaded 3,560. It ran, it cleaned it up, it pulled in some properties, it ran its AI, and it gave you 422. And that's what I mean. Thank you, Anna. That's like actually what I mean by targeted outreach. We went from 3,560 down to 422 contacts. Not all of them are going to be perfect. Let's figure out a way to work through them, right? So that we can find the ones that are good. That's really what that's the simplest way I can make this app make sense. That isn't fluff. That isn't, it's going to magic you something. That isn't anything like that. It's like, all right, cool. Now we go to work. Like, it's done some work for you, but now you've got to actually talk to some people, which is what we could be doing every day anyway, right?
Gotcha. So these 3 stars, you mentioned it's compared to what? How does it rank them 3?
It basically, it compares it to the entire US population. I think that's what you meant when you said global. So it's ranking the entire US population and then saying, hey, this person, because of all of these factors, their internet searches, they just had a kid, they're in a 1-bedroom house, they're going to need a size up. They just got a promotion, any and all of these things, right? It's saying, hey, this person we think is most likely to list. Now, you should probably reach out to them, because the app isn't going to do that for you, right? And see. And the better thing about this, at least in my mind, is that they're contacts in your phone. So to some degree, you have some relationship, right? So you're not buying Zillow leads or something, which I'm fine. I'm not like harping on leads being good or bad. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, these are people that are in your phone. So you have some amount of relationship with them. Now, the other thing I get all the time, and I'll show you when we're in the app, is like, I don't know who these people are. Okay, that's fine. Like, they're in your phone for some reason. If you've had the same number for 20 years, yeah, you might have forgotten a couple people. But the other point to that is you're not scrolling through your phone trying to find them either. So the app has already like directed you to them to just say hi. And that's actually what I'm going to hop into the app, and then I'm going to hop into the stuff that I've been working on to share with you.
Awesome. While you're doing that, Frank, I just want to give a disclosure here. So I've asked Frank to give us best practices on using this specific app. He is probably going to go in a little bit, if you don't mind, Frank, just kind of what the app is real quick for maybe some new people who don't know. But if you guys do want more information on kind of how to download the app, how it works, that's all going to be on the agent portal, our internal website. So you could take a look at that. So this is kind of more of we're going into numbers. We need to know why this works and why we have to use it. So go ahead, Frank.
Cool. And I'll throw up a slide at the end too on how to download, if that helps. Okay, so we are in the app, and this is what I think has happened. And by the way, again, like I said, we're doing something a little bit different. This isn't the demo account. This is my account, right? So good morning, Frank, right? Like, this is me. This is my phone. These are my contacts. Okay, so if we're talking targeted outreach, I had 731 contacts in my phone. Moving away and then back, I actually changed my phone number, right? When I moved to London, I like lost my high school phone number. So I think this number probably would have been higher, but regardless, I had 731 contacts. It got me down to 143 start opportunities, right? So again, I'm not trying to call 731 people. I'm just trying to work through my 143. I think if you guys have been in real estate a while, these numbers will be higher. If you haven't, these numbers might be around this, right? Totally fine. I think what's happened before is you've opened this app up, if you've tried it before, and you've looked at it and gone, what? Like, where do I start, right? And that's fair. And I think a lot of times, I don't love this feature yet, this daily recommendations, and let me tell you why. You can skip, so I can click the skip button here. And if I say to myself, no, and skip, no, and skip, and no, and skip, suddenly I'm like, I don't know about this app, like, right? Like, I don't know about this person. I would never reach out to them. Like, why is the app directing me to do this? It's just not necessarily like the best place to start. So I always say, don't worry about it. Like, I think a lot of tech gets thrown out at us. So instead of being overwhelmed, we're just gonna take a deep breath and scroll past it. That's it. And then come into here, come into your starred contacts. Okay. So the thing that I learned at R4 the most, the biggest hang up that was happening for agents at R4 was that they were seeing people in the app that they felt didn't make sense and therefore stopping, right? It goes back to that person that I was talking about, deceased grandfather. I think there is a valid reason why it came up, but he said, one doesn't make sense, I'm done, right? And what I'm saying is, let's not worry about it. We're gonna do what I call 5 and 5, which is you're gonna delete 5 people from the app that don't make sense. It is very easy to do. Elias Hernandez is a coworker on my team. If I would never reach out to him through the app, or I don't think that that makes sense, I'm gonna click on him. I'm gonna scroll to the bottom and I'm gonna click delete contact. That's it. If I am never gonna talk to this person through the app, I'm gonna delete them. Because the other thing that starts doing is it cleans up my list here, right? Like my 143 now gets a little bit closer to a realistic number of the right people I should be talking to. And I think just looking at clean data is just a nicer way to start a day, or look at your day, or go through your week, whatever you want to do. So 5 and 5, that's my suggestion, is I'm going to delete 5 people that don't make sense. What's up, Anna?
Can you explain, I guess, a little bit why it would pull in a contact like this?
Sure. Like, this is a coworker of mine, right? He does live at this house, right? So like, if I'm a real estate agent, yeah, maybe this is somebody I would like talk to, but I talk to Elias every day, right? Like, we Slack every day. We're in almost constant communication. So if that is somebody, like, if this is your best friend, if this is your bestie that it pulled through, then you're trying to tell yourself 3 different stories about this. I'm saying, don't worry about any of those stories, just delete the person. And let's find the next person that makes more sense for what we're trying to accomplish here, which is getting a listing, right? Making a sale. So delete and move on. Now, the next person here is actually another coworker of mine, Lacey. She also works on the team. So I'd probably delete that person too, right? But like Scott Peterson here was a previous coworker. So what I would do is I'd scroll down, right? I always like to say, check the house, right? And that's true. When I moved back to Colorado, we moved to Fort Collins, right? I worked for a company briefly in Fort Collins. This was a previous coworker. Okay. Now I got to think, what could I say to Scott, right? Because this is the biggest other hurdle that I think everyone hits, which is, how do I start the conversation? Where do I start? What do I say? Especially if you haven't talked to somebody in a while, right? Because I think that that's very real. I haven't talked to this person in like 2 years. So what am I gonna say? Okay, I'm gonna pull up my secret stuff and we'll hop back in the app in a second. But I think like that is the biggest issue that people are having, is like, they don't know what to say. So I'm gonna ask, before I pull up my stuff, what do you guys think? Like, what do you guys think? If you haven't talked to somebody in 2 years, what do you think you could say? And then I'll pull up some of the stuff that's been working. This is where somebody comes off and tells me something.
I see Nicole, you just unmuted yourself. Do you have a question, Nicole?
No, I was just going to say, I've had the same experience with the app, and so I just, see, I'm probably doing it wrong because I'm texting people. I'm not actually calling them. I'm texting them, and I
Texting's
say,
good, though.
hey, it's been a while since we've talked. I'm just trying to catch up with you, see how you're doing, what's happening, and that's it. And sometimes they respond, and sometimes they don't. And I really like the fact that the app, like if you hit text message and it takes you to your text messages. I don't throw any of mine away.
Right.
So it hooks me up to, like, sometimes I don't know who the person is. It's maybe somebody I showed a house to like 3 years ago. And so I can like look back through those text messages and remind myself of who they are. And so like one guy a couple of months ago texted him and asked him how he and his girlfriend were doing. And he texted me back and he was like, well, we're not together anymore, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, and I mean, he's not looking for houses, but, the fact that it syncs with my old text, I really liked that because it helped give me that background.
Yeah, it helps, it honestly just helped remind you of who the heck this person was, right?
Yeah, and
Totally.
I mean, and there are other people, I mean, I've texted them and said, okay, you're in my database, but I cannot remember who you are. How do we know each other? And like I had one guy say, hey, you showed us a house 2 years ago. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. I'm sorry, I didn't recall that. What are you doing now? La, la, la,
Right. No, that's you're pretty spot on actually with kind of what we're sharing. So let me share this. I think you can text a little bit more, but I appreciate that you're brave enough to call, to be honest, right? And I'll show you what I mean by that. But this was it. So if you're talking and this isn't pretty, again, this is literally Frank typing stuff out to send out. So this is why it's secret sauce. But if you're talking just regular sales, right? How would you always start a conversation? With a quick icebreaker, right? And there's a reason that people joke about talking about the weather all the time, but that's because it is human nature to talk about the weather because it's the one thing that affects us all that we have no control over. So it is a very easy conversation starter. Is it an easy conversation starter with somebody I haven't talked to in 5 years? Maybe not, right? That could be a little bit awkward. Maybe if there's a big storm coming through or something like that. We had a brush fire up here the other day, or yesterday actually. So if somebody wanted to talk to me about that, I would be talking about it. Small joke or sincere compliment, right? These are the three basic icebreakers. If you can incorporate that, great. If not, this is what I've seen working. I call it sincere apology scripting. And the reason for that is, I don't know if you've ever been too embarrassed to talk to somebody because it's been too long, right? It's been so long that you can't say hi to them anymore. I ducked from somebody in the supermarket the other day because I couldn't remember their name, right? And I wanted to, but by the time I remembered, they were gone. So say la vie at that point. So this is the text that's been working. Something like, hi, Alex, I'm so sorry I haven't been in touch recently. Was thinking about you the other day and just wanted to reach out and say hi. Do you have any time to catch up this week? That is pretty gentle, right? But what you're doing is you're kind of saying, hey, listen, it's my fault, right? You're taking the blame and therefore some of the embarrassment away from them and just inviting a response. I think a lot of times people thought the app, you had to send a text that said, hey, Alex, I haven't talked to you in 5 years. Can I list your house tomorrow? Right? And that's not how that's going to work. So realistically speaking, can you do a text like that? I think yes, right? That's a text I could send 5 times a day to somebody that I haven't talked to in a while. Okay. The best practice here, there's a set a next step button. So when I hop back in the app, I will explain that better. But the app allows you to set reminders for how you want to follow up with somebody. So always push this blue button. When I show you in the app again, always push the blue button. And the reason for that is if we actually do 5 and 5, which by the way, 5 and 5 again means deleting 5 people a day and outreach to 5 people a day. So if I send 5 texts a day, at the end of the week, I've sent 25 new texts. I don't know about you. I'm not going to remember where I'm at with 25 new people that I'm trying to talk to, right? So I always say, again, let the app do the work. We're going to push the blue button. You can set a reminder for how you want to connect with that person again. Now, Nicole, what I love about you calling is this. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different result, right? So if I send somebody 5 texts and they haven't responded and we haven't talked in 5 years, why am I going to send another 5 texts, right? Like set the next step to say, hey, I'm going to call, or hey, I'm going to reach out through social media or something like that. Kevin?
Yeah, Frank, my question is, what's the biggest difference with communicating through the app? So say I have you in my contacts comes up, why should I contact you through the app versus just going into my contacts and pulling up our last text chain or whatever it was?
So like Nicole was saying, I'll pull up the app and show you. But like what Nicole was saying, it'll pull up your native text app. If you're texting through the app, it'll log the connections for you. And you can put notes in, and you can set that next step as a reminder. So let me show you here.
And it's not a different number, right? Like it would be.
No, it's your number.
All right.
So like, I'm going to click Scott Peterson. Okay. And again, this is my phone, so God knows what's going to happen here, but I'm going to click text, which means it's going to pull up my last text to this guy. Right. Okay, cool. It was a sales company. Hey, Frank, I'm so excited for you. He's a nice guy. He's a former coworker. Right. And now I can remember how I know him, and now I can send a text, right? Now, Kevin, when I come back, I'm gonna click in First by Remax up top and come back into the app. This blue button is what I was talking about. This like set a next step. Nothing's stopping you, Kevin, from doing what you're saying. You could see that they're a 3-star contact and text them, but like you're still texting them from your text anyway this way. But if I click set next step, now I can decide how I want to reach out to him, right? Do I want to call him, email him in person? Again, like I was saying, if I sent him 3 or 4 texts already, we know on average it takes around 6 contact attempts to get somebody to respond back anyway, right? So if I sent a couple of texts, maybe I'm going to say, all right, you know what? I'll bite the bullet. I'm going to call him tomorrow. Click add. You get confetti for everything you do well in the app. And now if I come back into my homepage on the bottom there, up top, there you go. This was from a previous demo, but this is right there. Call Scott Peterson. So now tomorrow, the app is actually going to send me a notification saying, hey, by the way, you said you wanted to call Scott. Are you going to go ahead and do that now? Right? A little bit more accountability, a little bit more of like gentle reminder, whatever way you want to look at it.
So essentially, I'm going to put this in my own perspective. If I download this, I'm going to want to make sure that this app is working for me. I'm going to use it to its full ability. I'm not going to use the 3 stars, go in my text and text them separately. I want to make sure that this app works in its entireness. So I'm going to use it and text people kind of from this app. So Kevin, I guess that gives kind of a third-party perspective.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is this, like, this is a former coworker, right? And I have his LinkedIn because it pulled in. So I can also message him through LinkedIn. So say that I've sent 2 texts, right? And if it didn't pull in, because it doesn't always pull it in, right? I can click add social, and I can add a Facebook or a LinkedIn or something like that. But I can go ahead and I can click social. It will go to my LinkedIn here. And now I can message this guy through LinkedIn. And maybe on the 2nd or 3rd or 4th or 5th attempt, maybe that makes more sense, right? Like maybe I would probably respond to a Facebook message pretty quick because I don't get them that often, right? Like that would be unique for me, and I would probably just reply really fast. Text I kind of ignore sometimes because I'm busy. So that's just how it would work in my mind. I have one agent that loves Facebook Messenger because you get a read receipt. So she feels like she's guilting them into responding to her. That's how she puts it. I'm like, well, whatever. If they're responding to you, it doesn't really matter, right? She's like, exactly. So that's kind of the app. Like, can you come in here? Can you decide? Now there's me, right? So I would delete me because like I'm not going to contact me. So that's one of my 5 deletes, right? The other thing I'll say is up top, you got this bulk edit button. So a lot of times what will happen is, especially realtors that have been in the business for a long time, they have a lot of other realtors' phone numbers in here. So, and it won't catch them all. So I can check, you guys got to make sure you check the box here But if I check that, everything down here lights up, and then I can either mark as an agent or delete contact. Somebody walked up to me at R4, she had 1,000 starred contacts, right? Where it says 143 for me, it said 1,000 for her. And she was like, I don't get it. Like, there's too many people and I want to clean it up. And I went, okay. So we came into here, we bulk edited, and about a minute and a half, we had deleted like 25 people, right? And I've caught up with her since. She's down to 600 and she's been doing 5 and 5 a day, right? She does a bit of a cleanup every now and then, but she just does 5 and 5. She's like, you know what, Frank, I'm talking to more people. Some of these are past clients that I thought I was really good about reaching out to, and clearly I'm not, right? Clearly I could be doing a better job, is kind of how she put it, right? And most importantly, I'm just having more conversations with more people, which I think is really the whole point of this anyway. You're just talking to more people, you're just targeted for the people you're talking to. Okay. Does that make sense? Does 5 and 5 make sense? I know that it got asked in the chat. I feel like I answered it, but if we need to, we're just saying delete 5 people that aren't mentally like you're like, no, and then reach out to 5 people. Now, the other thing I'll say here is I had a really skeptical, I was running like a 4 series workshop for an office, and a really skeptical manager. On the second workshop, he was like, I don't know, Frank. And I was like, you asked me for these workshops, like, what don't you know? And he's like, there's a 3-star contact in here. I sold him a new build in 2019. I know them really well. Like, no way they're a 3-star contact. And I go, okay, it's not 2019. This was last year, but I'm just like, it's not 2019 anymore, right? And I go, what do you want to do? And he goes, well, you keep yelling at me to do the outreach, do the outreach, do the outreach. Because that's really all the app is. It's like, just talk to as many people as possible, right? And so the next, like 2 weeks later, I followed up with him and he was like, I was like, did you do it? And he's like, yeah, I mean, it's a past client. It's not that hard to reach out to them. And I said, what happened? He goes, you were right. The app was right. And I go, why? And he goes, the guy took a job offer in Florida that he couldn't refuse, right? They're moving, like they're selling that new build I sold him to, but at least now I got it. At least now I'm the one that's going to list it for him. So I'm like, there you go. And that's kind of my point is you can't assume that you know what's going on with 1,000 people in your phone's lives, right? Like, let the AI do the work for you. Is it always going to be perfect? No, nothing is, right? So beyond that, just send the text, because the worst thing that's going to happen is they don't respond or they respond negatively, but neither of those two are going to like ruin a day. I'll show you something else. So like, you've got people in here that you might not know who they are. So you can make groups. Yep. So I made a group with an office called Not Sure Who They Are. And we put people in that group. To make a group, I'll back up a little here. To make a group, you click the manage button. All the groups that you have are right here. You click create new group. You type in a name. You can set like a reminder cadence for this. This is a new feature. It came out last week. And then you've created your group. To put anybody in a group, I just click on a starred contact. I'll put myself in Not Sure Who They Are because that's kind of funny, right? And then Not Sure Who They Are, right? And now I'm in that group. So if I come back into my home page, Not Sure Who They Are, there you go. These people are in that group. Now I had a gentleman who, for the life of him, could not remember who one of these people were, right? Like we had put a bunch of people in here and I was like, come on, just do it. So he sent a text. And lo and behold, it was a bartender he met 5 years ago, you know, like when you could still sit at a bar and exchange a phone number and hang out. And they didn't remember each other, right? But 12, 15 texts later, they had reconnected and the guy got the listing because the guy was looking for a realtor. So like he was bold enough. Now that lady that I was talking about, R4, went from 1,000 down to like 600. She had like 20 in a group of like in this group, right? And one day she just was like, I'm going to bite the bullet and just text all my Not Sure Who They Are. It's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? And this is the worst that's going to happen. She got a response back that said, who the hell are you? Right? And that's probably the worst thing that could happen. And she said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm a realtor. I must have got your number wrong, but do you need any help? or do you know anybody that does? Because the market's kind of crazy right now. I can't tell you she got something out of that, right? I haven't followed up with her since, but at the end of the day, if the worst thing that you're going to get is an actual response from a live human being saying, who the hell are you? And you can spin it to, well, I'm a real estate agent, might be in your area, and can I help you out? Then like, that's not a bad thing either. She didn't say, hey, you came up in my database. She didn't say, hey, I'm using this app to like find you. Because I think at that point, if they don't know who you are, like that's getting a little bit weirder. She's just saying, hey, I must have got the number wrong, but while we're here, can I help you at all? Okay, any questions?
Frank,
about
I
that?
wanna, someone put something in the chat.
Sure.
Mark, nice to see that you're on. Every time I see your last name, I'm like baffled on how to say it. But Mark had asked any suggestions for what to say on maybe the third or fourth touch if they didn't respond to the first couple of texts.
Yes, Mark, thank you for asking this question. That's a great segue for me. So last time we were talking about this, right? So I've got that sincere apology idea, but if that's not hitting, you know, you got in the neighborhood, like, hey, I was in your neighborhood the other day doing a showing, made me think of you, would love to catch up. If like some of this isn't working, what somebody else shared with me the other day that she's been doing is she calls it asking for an opinion or asking for a recommendation, because people love to share that. And I'll give you the example here. So maybe you've reached out a couple of times, nothing's really hit. She had posted on her Facebook saying somebody was visiting from out of town that loves chai tea. Does anybody have great recommendations for a good place for chai tea? Now that could be anything. That could be best Chinese restaurant. That could be, I don't know, best steakhouse. That could be anything, right? But what she started doing with that was on that third or fourth attempt, after not really hearing back, she would just say, hey, we haven't talked in a while. I got some friends from out of town coming. I thought you might be an expert on steakhouses. Do you have any idea where the best place to go, where I could be like taking them this weekend? Right. And then she said she was so shocked at the responses that she got from that after not having a response from, hey, how are you? But I get it. Like if I think about that on my end, I don't know. I don't necessarily want to catch up with somebody all the time, right? Like, I don't know if I always have the time and energy for that. But if somebody's like, hey, real quick, can you tell me where you like to go to eat? I'd be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm all about this place, or Vietnamese is my favorite, so this is where we go. And then you've like kind of opened the door. So that's been something that I've seen working. Again, it's also on how you know the person. So like this question obviously comes up a lot, but you got to go back to the relationship that you have with them and maybe dig something out of there. Like with that Scott guy, we could talk, I very easily talk about, hey, how's it going at that job? You know, are you still there? Something like that. And then yes, by the third or fourth text, I think I'm calling at that point, or I'm certainly mixing it up. I'm either calling or doing, or I'm adding the social in, or I'm reaching out in some different way, I think at that point. Did that help, Mark?
Yes, thank you.
Cool, my pleasure.
We have one more question here, Frank. Angela had asked, if not importing from your phone, but from a CRM software, does First work with only name and address, or can it pull in email address, social media? What's the forte with that?
Cool, so it will work. So like I mean, obviously the better data in, better data out kind of deal, right? But if you only have a first name and an address, it'll try to pull in everything else. Like it'll try to fill in the other fields, right? So like if I click in here, and again, like I'm really bad. I'm like, this is a dude I worked with at the winery. This is a dude that was on Xfinity when he was a client, right? Like I never got last names. So it's pulling in the information that it can. Like Patricio here, it couldn't pull in an email or a social, right? But I have his phone number so I can call or text. It will pull in as much information as it can. Obviously, the more information you give it, kind of the better it does, but that's okay. I like to point one other.
It doesn't need a phone number?
It doesn't need a phone number. It'd be better, but it doesn't need. Especially if you're giving it an address, the address is pretty good. If you give it a name and a phone number, then like in this case, right, it's going to pull up an address. right? Imported, added by first, right? So like, that's what I was saying when we were in that initial screen, that, 700 addresses got imported by first.
Okay, we have some other questions if you don't mind, Frank.
I gotcha.
I think everybody is kind of wanting to know, what does this integrate with? Can we upload a CSV file to connect the rest of our contacts, a CRM?
You got it. So there is talk about it integrating with Booz down the line. We are not there yet. Nick made an announcement at R4 about that. But that's by end of year. I like to say, don't wait for something that, I mean, I'm not developing it, so I have no timeline, right? Like, I would never give a timeline for something I'm not typing out, right? So I wouldn't wait. You can get your star ratings tomorrow. Like, it can take up to 24 hours to sync with your contacts, but like, you could be going with this all this year. Now, you can do two things in terms of exporting and importing. So I'm going to go down to account here. Account is what I just clicked. Export contact CSV. So I can export all of this to an Excel file. You can upload that into your CRM and work off of it that way. I'll give you my use case for this. I had an agent, she had 600 3-star contacts. So in her mind, she said, okay, that's 600, 90% more likely to list than your average US homeowner. Some of them will be good, some of them will be bad. I just want to get going. So she exported it to a CSV, right? Stuck it onto her CRM, and then she emailed, because it was going to be way easier to do 600 CMA emails on a computer than on a phone, right? So she emailed a CMA to all of her 3-star contacts. Didn't say much, by the way, right? Like, hey, this is your house. The number's probably higher than you think. Do you want to talk about it, right? Like, that was kind of the gist of it. I shared that with another office. There was a mother-daughter team. She said, great, I'm going to do that. And my daughter is going to send video CMAs to all my starred contacts. So again, like, yes, you can get the data out of here. It's in an Excel file, and you'll have like the stars. You'll get the stars out of it, which I think is the most important part.
I wanna add to that. As real estate agents, we tend to try and connect everything to something else to make sure everything is all in one place, but it ends up being a huge mess and it stresses you out more than anything, right? So I would make sure that, and you gave a great point, Frank, exporting all of these contacts, you have the information of who is ranked 3 stars. Maybe
Yep.
just send them a CMA, maybe send them a newsletter. That's another important thing, I guess, that Mark added to. If they're not responding to your text messages, just shoot them the next 3 months some newsletters. That's it. Monica had asked can she import leads from a CSV file into this program, or from an email into this program?
Yep. I will show you that in 1 second, but you just made me think of something else, Anna, that another agent was kind of trying to wrap her head around, right? So she was like, hey, I just texted this person through the app, right? And I go, okay, great. And she goes, and I set my next step. And I go, okay, great. And she's like, do I now have to go over to my CRM and mark them? And I was like, what does it change? That was that was my question. I was like, what does it change? I was like, you've got a reminder in your CRM in a month to reach out to this person. You set a reminder in the app for a week. All you've done is just added an extra reminder. I was like, this is designed to be on the go. So I don't think you need to stress yourself out about running back to your computer to make a check mark that you did something. If you know that you did it, it's logged in here anyway. Just move on with your day. Right? Do the next thing that you want to do. And she was like, oh, okay, cool. That makes sense. But by just asking her, what will that change? It kind of freed her to realize that it won't change much, and that she could just reach out to 5 people. Everything doesn't always need to be connected. That's actually what you said that made me think of that.
Right. The app is supposed to be used just for the app. Make sure this thing works for you. You don't have to really connect it to anything else unless you want to send them a CMA or send them a newsletter. Don't stress yourself out.
Yeah. And that almost to some degree with tech in general, right? We have so much overwhelming amount of tech that we're stressed out about making sure it all works. It's well, this is just asking you to reach out to some people. Are you going to call, text, or email them today? You're going to look them up on social media. And that's the other thing I'll say is there's nothing stopping you from seeing a 3-star contact and going, you know what, let me just Facebook them real quick. Let me look them up on LinkedIn. Like, let me see if there's something recent that I can see that I can talk to them about, right? Okay, cool. So we were talking importing from a
Just blanked out at the worst time possible, didn't he? See if we can get him back on.
CSV, right? So
Frank, we just
I back?
lost you there. Yeah, you're back. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. I was like, I stopped the share. Mountain internet, guys. All right, cool. I'm gonna screen share again. So in Mac Center, we can import this CSV like you were asking about. So you can search for first, or it's gonna be the repeat and referral business tile. So if I click that,
Every time he shares the screen.
like second, oh, actually good way to do it. Am I frozen again?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, cool. So you sign up now as sign in. And then the second one down is going to be import contacts. If they'll load, import contacts, and then upload a CSV.
So that
Pretty
is
simple.
done on the desktop side, not necessarily the mobile side.
Correct. It's the only thing that you'd really be doing on the desktop side for the app. Initial design was to be
Frank, you gotta stop sharing your screen.
worked with your phone contacts. God damn it. All right, am I back? I feel like I'm back. Okay. An app's initial design was to be used with your phone contacts. And the reason I say like, hey, let's be careful with uploading too much is I got on the phone or got on a Zoom with an agent. He had like 25,000 contacts uploaded, right? And I was like, okay. And he was like crying at me. He's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what I've done. And I was like, what did you do? And he's like, I uploaded my 5 databases. I uploaded 3 different email addresses. I like put everything in here. And I went, okay, let's take it all out. Like, let's start with your phone contacts, which are going to be your warmest anyway, because you have some amount of relationship with them first. Let's get you comfortable in using the app before we add in, 20,000 more contacts that you're really not sure who they are. And he said, okay. So then we backed out and then we added in one by one, right? Now, if you have like a super clean database that you've been working off of, which is what happened yesterday when I was talking to somebody, he was like, hey, I've got this database that I'm like working. Then yeah, I would do that. Can we send emails from the desktop? Can we text out of the desktop? There is no desktop version, Chris. So the desktop version is possibly coming, but it is a mobile app. The only thing that you're doing on the desktop is uploading a CSV. Everything else is on the phone.
How does, I guess, that work with Macs, Frank? Because obviously Macs, you can download apps just like you kind of can on your iPhone.
This isn't going to be an app to download on Mac Center. Oh, on Macs? Is that
Macs,
what you said?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so you can do it on your iPad. I don't know about your Mac computer yet, actually. It's mobile. If you have it so you can like have a mobile app there, then it probably would work. But that's a good question. I can get back to you on.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't
essentially
know.
just use this on the go. It's supposed to be when you're drinking your morning coffee and like you contact those 5 people, you delete those 5 people out.
Yep.
Chris, so don't get too crazy over there with, putting all these, I know you're going to do it too, putting all these people in your CRM and trying to email them. Just give them a call.
It's also like, it's not a CRM. I think like that's why I really go back to targeted outreach program, not a CRM. Because if you say the word CRM to me, I start thinking drip campaigns and like a bunch of other features and functionality that never designed to do, not asking you to do, right? Like this is just like Anna said, it's designed to be used on the go. Like you're at a showing before somebody else shows up, you got 5 minutes in there, great, send a couple texts. You know what I mean? Like that's the use case. I also don't think you sit down and do 5 hours of first today, right? Like, I don't think that that makes sense either. I think you do 25 minutes a day, right? 25, 30 minutes a day. At the end of the month, you've reached 100 people, you've reached out to 100 people, you've kept track of that somewhat, and then you just kind of see where that has landed you. And that's really the power of the app.
Mark
When you
asked,
sign up for the app through Mac Center, we need to do it on our phone. Yeah, so like if you go through Mac Center, I'll end up giving you a QR code, Mark, that you can scan to download it on, like download it from the App Store, or you can just go into the App Store and search for First by Remax.
Mark, just do it on your phone. It's easier.
It is easier.
I want to add one more thing. If you guys have any more questions, just keep putting them in the chat here. One of my best practices that I heard about, actually, Nick Bailey has talked about it. Once you get all of your 3-star contacts, go ahead and use those people for marketing purposes. If you're one of those people that sends out like a pie or sends out a gift every so often or just around the holidays, send it to just those people that are also 3-star contacts, right? You're going to get the most bang out of your buck for that. And not, instead of sending it over to everybody, send it to those 3-star contacts.
Yeah, that's like your gold right there.
Mhm.
Is really what it boils down to.
Does anyone else have any questions? If not, I'm going to kind of sum this up, Frank, if you're kind of done.
I got a
with-
question. Was this helpful? And 2, do you think you can do 5 and 5? That's really what it boils down to. Yeah, cool. I see a couple thumbs up. I'm going to take that. I'll take everyone else's silence as yes. And that's really what this is about. I think for a long time, it wasn't necessarily explained in the easiest manner, in like a how to do it rather than this is what it can do. And I think just diving in is going to be the best option for everyone.
So I'm going to sum up kind of a couple of things that Frank gave to us in case people are writing it down or, you know, mental note in your brain. One of the first things he said was start with that 5 to 5 method. If you're looking at those contacts, go ahead and delete 5 people that just maybe don't make sense. They're a coworker, an agent of yours, and then go ahead and reach out to 5 people, maybe every day or maybe every other day, however you want to work your goal. So the 5 and 5 method. The second one he mentioned was go ahead and add people that you're not sure who they are into a separate group. That way you can kind of try to make that connection in your head along the way, and they're all in a separate group and it's organized. Another one he mentioned, if they aren't responding via text, go ahead and either call them or send kind of like a clickbait text that asks an opinion, asks for a recommendation, or even asks for a referral. The next one was export your contacts into an Excel file, right? You can do that easily from the app. And then add it to your CRM, email them a CMA, send them gifts to those 3-star contacts, so on and so forth. Last one here is, remember, this is supposed to be designed to be on the go. Don't go crazy with thinking that you have to do this. It's supposed to be used for you. And in fact, when you first sign up for it, you set a goal for yourself on how many listings you want to have for this year. So I think I'm summing up kind of the last things there. But I do want to say this app is super, super easy to download and start using, guys. In fact, for me, I just did it with a couple of agents on Monday. It takes you 5 minutes to go ahead and set everything up. Forewarning, once it starts connecting your contacts, it's going to look like it's maybe glitching a little bit. And you're like, okay, why isn't it showing me all my contacts? It's going to take a second to make sure that all of those are uploaded. Go ahead and check it in like an hour, 30 minutes, refresh the app, and then you'll see that your contacts are in there. Just FYI on that, but that is all that I have for you guys. Frank, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, like I'm just going to bring you along to like sum me up every time. This is great. So it can take up to 24 hours to sync. So if you've downloaded the app and it doesn't look like it's doing anything, especially if you have a ton of contacts, just give it a second. And then when you open it up again, you'll be good. What's up, Mark?
Quick question, actually 2 questions. So if we do the trial for the 60 days,
Yep.
A, if we don't like it, is it easy to cancel it?
Yep.
B, if we cancel it, but decide to go back to it, does it have to resync everything or will it just pick up where we left off?
It'll re-import your phone contacts because you've canceled it. So it's gone, you know what I mean? Like all that data is gone. It's not going to keep that. And then if you decide to go back to it, it'll just do the initial sync that it did the first time. And then to cancel, Mark, you just reach out to product support and just say, hey, listen, this is not working for me or something like that. Or reach out to me and we'll figure out why it's not working first before you cancel. But yeah, no worries.
I actually have an easier solution too if you're like fed up with it. First off, reach out to Frank because Frank will kind of hold you accountable with some things clearly. And then there is like, you can do it on your own. I have a quick video on our internal website, the agent portal, that I just posted in the chat. There is a quick like 1 minute video, really direct on how to go ahead and cancel it. So just FYI on that. Penny,
I have
I
a quick
do see-
question.
Angela?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
After your initial upload, can you go back and upload more people? Because, you acquire more contacts. How?
Yep. It will actually add a new contact on a daily basis. It'll add new contacts from your phone on a daily basis. So if you meet somebody at, and put their number in your phone at 2 p.m., by the next morning, it will have pulled that in for you.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. I'm a pretty big believer in like work smarter, not harder, right? Like that's kind of what I think this app does, right? Is it like helps you recognize the people you should be reaching out to, and then it actively tries to give you more people. So.
Anyone have any further questions? Get them out now while it's hot. No? Okay.